What's going on, guys? I'm Icy Rhythms. Welcome back to another video, and in this one we are talking 25 years of PlayStation and what that means to me. I know for some people that don't know me that well, it probably seems like it doesn't mean much at all. I've somehow earned this reputation as a PC port beggar, and those who don't know me very well probably do feel that way, and I guess I've given them some reason to feel that way, even though the actual term beg and just begging, beggar, no longer applies, because I would actually give Sony money for games, by the way, I've already paid for, that I already own, if they were to port some of those games over to PC, whether they own the IP or whatever they can do to make some of that happen. I'm talking stuff from, the PS1, a lot of the PS2 stuff that I didn't get to play, PS3, as well as the PS4. Stuff like, Death Stranding, right? That's not necessarily like a first-party game. It was funded by Sony, but it's not necessarily a first-party game, so a lot of that makes sense. But I also don't really have tons of interest in a game like Death Stranding. I'm talking about games that I actually like, games that I actually care about, that I've played and completed. I would love to have the Uncharted games to be able to play on my PC, even if that had to be through Sony's own store and launcher. That would be great to me. The Last of Us, again, I reviewed that game a while back, and I said the more and more I've played it, the more that I've liked it. It's games like that, the God of War series, I would like all of those on PC. Stuff that I actually own and have played, and some of them even have the platinums for. So, it's this term begging and PC port beggar, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. And those that like to claim stuff like that, whether it's with me or another gamer, you guys are kind of slow. You're kind of retarded. It just doesn't make any sense. But have at it. Have your fun, I guess. So PlayStation to me is very important. We know that Sony and the PlayStation brand has been, huge for gaming. A lot of things changed when Sony got into the game. I don't want to necessarily say that there's been a lot of innovation coming from Sony, a lot of really great evolution, compared to what was already there in the industry. They've done great as far as that goes. If we're talking innovation and stuff that's like completely new, we've never seen anything like it before, I don't think Sony has done a lot of that. I don't think you can necessarily say that Microsoft has really done much of that either, but we all know in terms of longevity, Nintendo is king. It's probably always going to be that way. I would say, even if one day Sony and Microsoft were no longer involved in the gaming industry, I would like to think that, yes, Nintendo will still be here in some capacity, but you can't ignore the history of PlayStation, and especially for people that are my age, maybe a few years younger, or I think anyone that's, probably, let's say 24 to 45 or so, PlayStation is probably a very big deal for us, for those people. I always tell this story. I've told it many different ways, many different times, but those of you that haven't heard it, Twisted Metal was my first PlayStation exclusive, and I loved that game. I still think about that game. I don't know if it's aged all that well. It would be great to get like a remaster of the first couple of Twisted Metal games. I know a lot of people prefer Black. I didn't really, Black, that was at that time where, the PS2 is probably my least favorite PlayStation console, not because of the output of games or I thought the quality was terrible, but I was going through a period where I wasn't playing games as often, and what little I was playing, it was on the Xbox, Rainbow Six, 3 Black Arrow, Ghost Recon, Halo 2, different things like that. A lot of the online stuff was starting to catch on for me, and PlayStation, Nintendo consoles were just irrelevant to me at that time, and I missed out on a lot of great stuff. I was able to play some of it later, but there's tons of games that I would like to see even now ported to PC or made available for the PlayStation 4 in some way, the PlayStation 5, and I don't really, backwards compatibility is definitely important, but some of those games just they need a facelift. They need to be updated in some way, especially visually. Game mechanics could use improving, different things like that. There's a lot of games that I would like to go back and play that not only I love, but that I missed out on. So whether you're talking PS2, PS3, PS1, PS4, and whatever the PlayStation 5 brings us, you cannot deny that Sony has it's a great history, right? It's a great history no matter how you slice it. They are probably, and I've said this many times, if I was a console only gamer, just me personally, if I was a console only gamer, I would probably side with the PlayStation stuff. For me, they just have a better output of games. I have more respect for some of their first party studios than I do. It's not, I think Nintendo's great. Again, Nintendo is king for a lot of different reasons. Microsoft, they have some amazing teams, some very talented teams, but the output from some of those teams, I think, just hasn't been on the same level as not only Sony, but, Nintendo as well. So I just think, for me, if I was a console-only gamer and I didn't have a PC or I couldn't afford a PC, then PlayStation would be my go-to console, and that's all that I really need to say about that. But Twisted Metal 1 and 2, those games meant a lot to me. Always gonna be a part of the gaming heart, if you will. There was a game called Loaded for PS1. I believe it was a launch title. It was somewhere in the launch window. You can't forget stuff like Resident Evil or Resident Evil 2. That stuff was kind of like, for modern survival horror owes a lot to Shinji Mikami and a lot of those other developers on those original Resident Evil teams. But that is also for a completely different video. But it's games like that, I just remember Final Fantasy VII. While I did enjoy Final Fantasy VIII more, there's no denying the impact that game had. And even though it was third party, I mean, back then stuff like that would probably sell 1 million, 2 million consoles, where a big exclusive these days, it's probably not going to do that. It's you're going to have exceptions, of course, but big games like that at that time were definitely selling PlayStations. And even though the game released on other platforms, I think a lot of people did sort of associate Final Fantasy for a long time with the PlayStation, because for some people that didn't have a lot of knowledge, probably myself at that time, I didn't know a lot about, Final Fantasy on Nintendo systems, because I just didn't play a lot of Final Fantasy games until Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9 came along. I went back later and played some Final Fantasy games. I don't think I enjoyed them as much. I think a lot of it has to do with playing the, more up-to-date games first. I think that can kind of ruin the more outdated experience depending on how great those games were at the time. A lot of people hold like Final Fantasy V in very high regard. They put that game up on a pedestal. Or Final Fantasy VI, some people have said, is the not only the perfect RPG, but the perfect game. But it really wasn't, I think, for a lot of people, including myself. I don't remember how old I was at the time. Final Fantasy VII, let's see. I was probably 13, 14, something like that, somewhere in there. Those games just meant a lot to myself, as well as so many other gamers. And again, those games were heavily associated with PlayStation. That is not to be denied. And now you guys in the comments, those that have made it through the entire video, I want to know what PlayStation means to you. Like, what does the PlayStation brand mean to you as a gamer? How long have you been playing on PlayStation consoles? And there's no need to BS me. You're not going to get cool points by lying to me and saying that you've been, playing since the PS1, or, you thought Resident Evil 2 was a complex game when you were like 2 or 3 years old or something. I'm not trying to hear any of that mess. Just be honest and tell me how long you've been playing on PlayStation. Were you old enough to understand what it is that you were even doing and playing? These things matter. And again, you're not going to lose cool points or gain cool points if you're lying to me. Just tell me how you feel about PlayStation. It's a big thing for me. PlayStation, I'll probably tell very similar stories when there's, you know, a 30th anniversary for PlayStation, because it does mean a lot. And it doesn't just mean a lot to me. I think it should mean a lot to a lot of gamers. I think a lot of gamers probably have the PS2 as not only their favorite Sony console, but just their favorite console ever. That's not me. You know, the PS1 is still my go-to. Sony was so hungry, you know, so determined. PlayStation 1, Tecmo's Deception 1 and 2, like some of the original Tekken games, you know, a lot of that stuff came from third parties, but as far as I know, some of those games are still exclusive to PlayStation. I mean, yeah, I guess you can emulate a lot of these games at this point on PC, so what really is exclusive? But, you know, it's just really great memories, and the first thing that always comes to my head is Twisted Metal. You know what I mean? Sweet Tooth, the clown, the truck, the ice cream truck, and it's incredible. It's hard to really put into words how I feel completely about the PlayStation brand. I could probably, if I was in a podcast or something and it was just me and one or two other people or something that really cared about PlayStation and do hold them in very high regard for different reasons, I could probably talk about this for like an hour, 2 hours even, you know, just different games, different situations, a lot of memories, man. What's PlayStation mean to you? Let me know in the comments. Thank you guys for watching. I do appreciate it. As always, all the continued support. You guys have a good one. Peace.